I've been thinking about it a lot, and with the election coming up and everything in the news about politics and, our society, I realized I was a little jealous. I'm jealous of the fact that it seems like Republicans are able to just, ride the wave of whatever crazy conspiracy theory comes out next. I mean, there's a couple clouds in the sky. It's a little windy. It's real windy today. So maybe it was the Democrats. Maybe it was the Jews. I don't know. They don't know, but they have fun talking about it. It just seems fun. So back when I was a kid, we had just, these minor league conspiracy theories. We had who killed JFK? Was it really Lee Harvey Oswald, or was it the CIA or the FBI or the Cubans or the Soviets? Was there a Loch Ness Monster? Are any of those pictures that I'm seeing on dial-up internet, are they actually real? Did Stanley Kubrick actually direct the moon landing? But today, I feel like since it's a little windy out and there's some clouds out there, if I go on Twitter right now, I'm pretty sure I'll see a couple conspiracy theories about who's controlling the weather. And when they say who, they mean, I don't think they mean Jewish, but I'm pretty sure they mean Jewish. And along with all the conspiracy theories, another thing that these Republicans do, they just ask questions about everything, which is good. You should be a curious mind. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But it's different when you're just asking questions and not looking for answers. So from what I can see, Republicans are having a blast with just asking questions with conspiracy theories, so I thought I'd give it a go. Does anyone else find it funny how Republicans will believe in every conspiracy theory under the sun, but as soon as you mention Russia, they just nothing? Isn't it also a little strange that Jared Kushner, Donald Trump Jr., and other members of his campaign met with a Russian lawyer inside Trump Tower to discuss the hacked emails from the DNC? Isn't it weird that they also lied to the US government about that meeting and said it was about adoptions when it was really about the release of the DNC emails? Isn't it kind of strange how in Art of the Deal, Trump was talking about how he's going to work with the Russian government and the Kremlin about building properties in Moscow? And that's funny because he calls Kamala the communist and the Marxist. Anyone else find it strange how when Trump was meeting with 2 Russian diplomats in the Oval Office, he let slip that Israel had a double agent inside ISIS? And the fact that he told this to the Russians meant that they had to pull that agent out? Does anyone else find it weird that Michael Flynn, Trump's pick for National Security Advisor, was paid over $45,000 directly from the Russian state-owned and controlled media company RT? Isn't it also a little bit strange that Michael Flynn was let go from his position due to failure to acknowledge that he had conversations with Russian ambassadors and oligarchs? Isn't it stranger yet that Michael Flynn then pled guilty to lying to the FBI about communication and business dealing with Russians? And then isn't it also really weird that Trump pardoned him? Isn't it also a little strange that Michael Flynn and Jared Kushner tried to work out a secret line of communication between Trump personally and Russia? And they wanted to do that just to make sure that no one from the US intelligence agencies could hear him. Isn't that kind of weird? Isn't it a little odd how Jared Kushner failed his application for top secret clearance because he failed to disclose conversations he had with Russians? Isn't it also a little weird that Kushner tried to meet with a Russian investment banker who's personally sanctioned by the US State Department for his ties with Russian intelligence? Isn't it weird that Rick Gates, along with Paul Manafort, worked with Viktor Yanukovych and other pro-Russian factions in Ukraine? It's also kind of weird that Trump picked Carter Page as a foreign policy advisor because his previous job was an investment banker in Moscow. Isn't it weird that there were a couple US media personalities who were recently found out to have been accepting millions of dollars from the Russian government? Isn't it weird that George Papadopoulos, another one of Trump's foreign policy advisors, tried to set up another secret meeting between Trump and the Russians? Anyone else find it strange how Roger Stone was connected to Guccifer 2.0, who was later to be found out to actually just be straight up Russian intelligence, for the release of the Podesta emails and the rest of the DNC hacks? Does anyone else find it weird how the US intelligence agencies overheard communications between the Russians talking about how they have connections in Trump's campaign? Do you know it's weird how Trump always kind of speaks to Putin in a, quasi-positive light? Anyone else find it strange that in a development conference in 2008, Trump Jr. said, and I quote, "The Russians make up a pretty disproportionate cross-section of a lot of our assets. We see a lot of money pouring in from Russia." Does anyone else find it strange that Russia was running a multinational gambling organization out of Trump Tower and the headquarters of that organization was directly underneath Trump's personal residence? And it's not even like they were just taking a couple rooms out of Trump Tower. They had an entire floor dedicated to an illegal gambling operation backed by the Russian mobsters and Russian oligarchs. But I mean, we can't expect Trump to know what's going on inside of his own buildings, right? Anyone else find it weird that when Trump Tower was completed, it was one of only 2 buildings in Manhattan that allowed anonymous buyers? Anyone else find it weird how that Russian gambling ring that was taking up an entire floor of Trump Tower? Isn't it weird how the guy who was running that organization had an international arrest warrant out for him? He disappeared from the United States, and the next time he showed up on anyone's radar was in 2013 at the Miss Universe contest in Moscow. sitting a few seats away from Donald Trump. Isn't it weird how when they built Trump Soho, Trump got 18% of the profits, he had to put up nothing. He didn't have to put up any workers, he didn't have to make any plans, he didn't have to put up any money. He got 18%. It's also a little bit weird how the two financiers of that group were two former Russian oligarchs. Isn't it a little weird how in Florida there was over 60 buyers who spent over $90 million that had Russian passports or Russian addresses? Does anyone else find it kind of strange that in the late 90s that Trump owed over $4 billion, of which $800 million was personally guaranteed? And it was around that same time that all these Russian people and former Soviet people started buying up his properties? Isn't it kind of strange that Trump was able to secure a deal in Florida where they built 500 new apartments where he had to put up zero money? And the fact that later, once people started moving in, so many Russians and people from former Soviet bloc were buying up apartments there that it became known as Little Moscow? Ain't it strange how when Trump World Tower was completed, over 1/3 of the most expensive properties went to Russians? Ain't it also a little strange how Trump's casino was charged $10 million, the largest fine ever, anything like this to any casino in the United States, for willfully ignoring money laundering rules around the same time that Russia was trying to figure out how to get some of their money offshore because the Russian economy was collapsing? Anyone else find it weird that Trump's pick for Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, had ties with two Russian oil companies that he had worked with for years? Failed to disclose that too? Does anyone else find it weird that when Trump met Putin privately, he had the translator hand over all the notes from the conversation and we actually have no idea what happened? And we actually have no idea what they talked about when they met? Does anyone else find it strange that Trump privately sent Putin personal COVID-19 tests before any of us in America was able to get one? Does anyone else find it a little weird how Trump was paid $20 million by Russia to let them host the Miss Universe pageant in 2013? The best thing is Trump didn't have to do anything. Trump had to put up none of his own money, none of his own time, none of his own workers, and he got paid $20 million and all he had to do was show up. It's kind of weird, isn't it? It's kind of weird how no Republicans are talking about this, huh? How come every Republican would always talk about every single fucking conspiracy theory, but as soon as Russia is brought up, silence, nothing, zip, zada, zilch, nothing. They're quiet. They're as quiet as a church mouse when Russia's involved. Doesn't it kind of seem like there's a bit of coordination between the Trump campaign and the Russian government?